when you have people who are incoming into a place who are full of vibrancy and new ideas and energy, and they're bringing all kinds of fresh thoughts into the business, um, and they're getting paid relatively little. They might be making like 20 grand a year or something like that, whereas there's these people who've been here and they're doing the same old stuff they've been doing day in and day out for the last 25 years, and they're making 100 grand.
Being able to see that and reward it so that it keeps being productive for you. Like, I feel like that's just a ground up solution to like how generally miserable working is for most people.
It's like, I got mad respect for those people. Like, I don't think they probably didn't get paid that much.
You could be wasting a lot of people's time if you're not aligned on that, and you need X amount to live and you're willing to pay Y amount that's down here. Nobody needs to waste their time on that middle shit. And welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. Did I say that right? Yes.
Yes, you did. It's not a minute microscopy. Yeah, you got it.
I am Casey of Rochefort, the one and only, the esteemed, and I bequeath upon you this divine challenge to like and share and subscribe to the channel.
Well, I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and I'm not going to try to use that complex, convoluted linguistic gymnastics that you just underwent.
Call me a nerd?
Hey, I'm a nerd too. we got glasses, right? That's the telltale sign of a nerd, isn't it?
Yep.
Tape my glasses up. So yeah, okay, before we diverge into some kind of weird nerdy territory, and start quoting Red Dwarf and Star Trek incessantly, don't forget we write our own music. It's available on iTunes and Spotify and all those good places. Stick around to the end of the episode. This timestamp here that I'm pointing to, you'll hear a new song. It won't be the whole song, but if you want it, you can go to ksmvidcast.com, and there's links there. Ooh, the internet.
Yep. You get just the tip of the music. Just the tip.
That's what we do here on this show. Just blue balls for everybody.
Blue balls, get your blue balls.
Okay, so before we go into a completely different and demonetized category, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, as goofy as we've been, this isn't necessarily a goofy topic, but it's one I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I think it'll generate a pretty good conversation. And that's right. the idea of wage transparency.
Oh, yeah.
Like from two different angles, really. Like, one, in like an employer like being forthcoming with what they're willing to pay for a position, right? And also to like not be so secretive about your own income with your peers, because it can allow you to like see where there might be some disparity, or maybe you're not getting what you deserve, or maybe on the flip side, maybe you think it's not fair how much I'm making versus how much these people are making,
Well,
like, it can really like make a healthier landscape, I think. So I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a good topic, and certainly it gives you perspective on kind of like where you stand. You know, what now, granted, in a large business, you know, if you're working at Dick's Burgers or something, right, and you're all kind of basically doing the same thing, those numbers, the different numbers do mean something. But you know, if you work in a huge place and there's people who are some kind of niche skill set, like robotic repair welder or something, right, or you know, some kind of systems administrator, well, they're not going to get paid as much as the janitor. But I, you know, I see it. I see it from a lot of different angles there. Like I get why people don't necessarily want to divulge how much they get paid, and you know, maybe it doesn't always have to have some kind of nefarious purpose. It could just be like, well, you're just a really private person. You don't want people to know what you get paid, right? But from the employees, your fellow employees standpoint, you know, yeah, it's good to know where you're at. Because I mean, if you were all doing the same job, let's say you worked at Dick's or something and you're flipping burgers and you got paid $13 an hour, but everybody else is getting paid like $25 an hour.
Right.
Well, it would be, you'd be like, well, what the hell, man? You know, like,
Well, I feel like there's happy middle ground though. Like if the employer were transparent-ish to all of its staff, it could post, you know, in the break room, have a breakdown of each department or whatever, and just, you know, coded names. Like you don't see who it is, you just see how many people there are in the department and the different salaries.
Yeah,
and you'll know which one's yours, and you won't know who's who. You won't be able to judge people unless you use some deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning and things like that to put it all together, which if you're spending that much time, like you've got a problem, you know, like, but basically it'll build that kind of a healthy competitive nature.
Well, yeah, I like that idea. I mean, as long as your department has more than two people in it, then you're probably okay.
Right.
You'd have person one,
even,
2, and 3 or whatever, and
even then, I mean, you just keep the standards the same. I mean, like if it's that small a business, yeah, they're gonna be like, this is peculiar, but like,
yeah, and I think in a small business sense that's probably less of an issue.
Right.
In general, I think this would be more applicable to big businesses, right? Like or franchises or chains or something like that, where there's hundreds or thousands of employees, and just knowing kind of the average wages of people in a particular field of work would help. I mean, you know, it helps everybody, I think. Like you said, competition too. It's like, oh, hey, wow. You could see what you could achieve within your particular field of work. You know, say you're making like $45,000 a year or something, but then you see a bunch of other people in your department are making like 65,000. You could be like, all right, well, you know, there's a target I can aim for. And who knows what that, you know, maybe it could involve some behind closed doors services to the boss, or it could involve, you know, just showing how good you are or being there long enough or something. Actually, I want to bring that up really quick. Tenure, like getting paid more because you've been there longer. To me, that really rubs me the wrong way. Like, I believe in like meritocratic systems where, you know, you do good work, right? You demonstrate that you can provide value for the company or whatever. You should get paid based on that, not based on how long you've sat at a desk, right?
Are we talking about tenure? Is like, I've only ever heard that in like academics, like professors getting tenure and stuff.
Well,
like
I just mean it in a general sense, like how long you've been at a place, right? You've been there so long and you you get pay raises based on the time you've been there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so like over time, I think that concept of tenure translated into cost of living, like that's kind of like the new reason that wages increase as time goes on, like whether it's
Yeah.
within a company or not. Like if you shift laterally, you're probably going to wind up in the same area, you know.
Yeah, that's true. No, and I wouldn't argue that that's a bad thing. I think that's good because
No,
yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah.
costs go up, wages should go up in kind. But you know, I don't know. There's kind of I see there's a limit to it. Like, you know, when you have people who are incoming into a place who are full of vibrancy and new ideas and energy, and they're bringing all kinds of fresh thoughts into the business, um, and they're getting paid relatively little. You know, they might be making like 20 grand a year or something like that, whereas there's these people who've been here and they're doing the same old stuff they've been doing day in and day out for the last 25 years, and they're making 100 grand. Like, I have a tough time dealing with that. Now it's up to the business, it's up to the employees. Like, sure, do what you want, but you know, I think that societally we should have an expectation of how things ought to work.
Yeah. Well, so in a situation like that with like new people exhibiting how good they are, um, I think a transparent system would give them the two balance points they need in order to create like a pivot, you know, something to kind of break the ice in the talk about like, you know, fair wage and stuff like that, and actually tying it to your productivity, you know,
Yeah.
because you get discouraged from that so early on because it's like it's hard to tie the livelihood of that person to the work that they're doing in our minds. But if you can see those two things transparently, like how hard they're working, how good they are, and how they're not even being recognized with a voluptuous raise in their wage, like pretty early on in their tenure, you know?
Well, yeah, and it could motivate some of the old guard, I guess,
Oh yeah.
to do better
Because
in a sense.
I'll tell you what, like, I don't know if there's been a study on this, but I've noticed this in myself. If I don't, if I don't feel that my contribution is being appreciated or noticed or whatever, my um, work ethic begins to like fall off the curve a little bit.
Yes, mine
Because
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's like I wonder if there's a threshold, and you know, in most people's minds, in the average, you know, median mind, where like they begin to uh, realize how much they're doing versus how much they're getting is, you know, feeling further and further apart.
Well, yeah, and they might even come to resent what they're doing
Yeah.
in a sense. Like, oh, hey, you know, you're basically handing me, you know, a handful of pennies for doing all this work.
I mean, you could almost quantify it in like a pretty fair and objective way. Like break it down to, you know, fractions of a penny or whatever if you have to, but basically have a gradient raise based on like, oh, you've exhibited that you've learned this quality and that quality and this quality and that quality that you need for this job. Like once you've proven yourself, like your minimum incoming will like elevate you to this stage, or
Yeah.
like if you do it exceptionally well, we'll like double that fraction, you know, and you can almost like immediately see like this huge increase in your income based on how you perform. So they lose a little bit of the risk in like getting green people and, you know, spending their money to take the time to train them, you know, might take a long time and stuff like that. So
Depending on the job, yeah.
yeah. So like being able to see that and reward it so that it keeps being productive for you. Like I feel like that's just a ground up solution to like how generally miserable working is for most people, right?
Well, I think it is generally miserable.
Mhm.
It's a fact of life, though, that you know, in one way or another, whether you
It's
are
how
like,
miserable it has to be is the question.
well,
Like,
you know,
you know?
whether you live in a big city and you work at like Amazon, or you live in the country and you have your own off-grid homestead, you're always going to be working in some capacity.
Right.
It's just how it is. But yeah, that's brought up some good points, though. I had a point about something you were saying, but I kind of forgot it. But when,
Sorry, I kind of rambled there.
oh no, it's all right. No, those are really good points, and I'm sure I'll think of the last thing I was thinking of. But for right now, you know, something you were talking about like earlier, like getting recognition, you know, and that made me think, you know, money isn't everything. Pay isn't everything. Sometimes the rewards you get from the work you do are intangible, or they could be,
Yeah.
you know, you like that's one of the reasons I work at my current job. Yeah, I could go. I've been offered jobs in all kinds of places, 6-figure incomes and all this stuff. Like, I don't want it. I have total autonomy where I work. Like, I don't have somebody, you know, breathing down my neck. Yeah, there's not necessarily always an understanding of like, or an appreciation of hard work. Oh, that was what I was going to get to. That in order to quantify things, your bosses, the managers or whoever, have to understand what it is you even do. Like, I talk to my boss all the time, and it's pretty clear she doesn't really know what we do. Like, I mean, not in a complete sense. Like, I think she has a general understanding of what we do, but doesn't understand like how much work we put into doing something, because she hasn't done it, you know, like it. And so in order to be evaluated for your work ethic or productivity or something, people that can dictate those things need to know what it is that you're even doing in the first place. And half the time they don't, you know? And that brings me to another point. Like, I think, well, you can't necessarily make this a thing. But if I were running a company, my policy would be, if you're going to go into a higher tiered position, you must have worked in a lower tiered position first. So if I were running a McDonald's, right, if you're going to be a manager, you have to have been a cashier or something like that, like somebody that worked the floor at the McDonald's before you become a manager. You know, before you become a regional, you
And
should have had to manage a McDonald's.
and you should maybe even make it like mandatory that they spend a little time in a few sections or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Well, isn't there that TV series where the boss goes and does the job of his employees or her employees,
like an undercover boss or something?
Yeah. And it's that's kind of what I was getting at, is like half the time they're really shocked at how hard it is. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, if you started a business and hired people, I get that you didn't necessarily do the things that the people you hired are doing. But you should have. Yeah. Like, it's really important.
It's so funny how we like refer to certain jobs like serving people and cooking their food as like a lower like entry level job, and they're really freaking difficult to do.
They
Like,
are. They well, and not only that, if you think about it, fixing, if you worked in like an Apple store or something, buying or selling iPhones and fixing things or whatnot, it's not a vital service, but food is. Like, if you don't have an iPhone, you're not going to die. Sorry to break it to you, millennials. You're not going to die, but if you don't have food, you will. So somebody handing you food is like a really important thing. And yeah, like to see that, or the people that, the garbage collectors or people that work in the sewers and stuff, like, do you know what would happen if there were no sewer maintenance technicians? Like, how quickly we would all be dying in cities. Like that is actually, and I 100% side with Mike Rowe on how important dirty jobs are, and how people should be going into those fields, and we as a society should be respecting people who do that. Like, it's probably a thankless job. It may not pay that much, although actually a lot of them pay fairly okay. But nevertheless, you could be making $100,000 a year being a garbage collector, and people look down on you. They're like, oh, well, I'm so much better than that, because I work at Microsoft. Like, no, you're not. If Microsoft just fell into a black hole today, the world probably wouldn't, it wouldn't really have that big of an impact. But if garbage collectors just stopped working, like, oh my God, that reminds me of, what is it, Sarah Cynthia Sylvia Stout? that little short
did
story.
she sell seashells by the seashore?
Yeah, exactly. But the garbage would pile up. I mean, these are important things, and even if they don't pay a lot, they should be something that we as a society should respect very much. People that perform services, that cook your food, that serve your food, people that take the garbage out, the janitors that clean the floors. I mean, people just it's almost like they just don't even care. Like, they assume like, oh, everything's going to be clean. No, it's because of fucking janitors that it's clean. All those people with the mops and buckets taking trash cans out, all the people working like late ass shifts. That's why everything is clean when you come into work. And I think it's great. Like,
yeah, I think if it was all in your face, like, I think most people want others to succeed and, be paid fairly and things like that. I just don't know that they have enough visibility into how much minimum wage is, so like, it's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
What we imagine as needing to be poor to be classified as, or what we imagine needing enough money to be classified rich as, is usually guiding these like perspectives.
Yeah, and they're kind of arbitrary lines too.
Yeah. I mean, I remember people always saying like, oh my gosh, police do not get paid enough. And then one day I went and looked, and I was like, oh man, I should become a cop. I'll get like a huge raise. Like,
yeah, and like that's only the base salary. They get overtime and stuff too. Like,
exactly,
man.
And so it's like, it's perspective, right?
Yeah.
That tells me a lot about what you think poor is,
Exactly. Well, and it depends on where you are too. There are places where $20,000 a year is ballin', and there's places where $1 million a year is not enough.
Yeah,
like, you're basically on the verge of being homeless if you make $1 million a year.
I literally just today saw a news article about some kid on a 20-year-old kid or something on an airplane throwing a hissy fit, being rude. I can't remember all the shit he was doing, but he was screaming at the top of his lungs, my parents are worth $2 million.
Well, what does that matter? It's like saying my dad's a cop. He's going to come and kick your ass or something, you know?
Yeah, you're not exactly blue chips, are you?
Yeah. Yeah. $2 million isn't what it used to be. But
my
actually,
parents are worth $2 million.
and that's something this is something that like has always irked me. Because, you know, I've had a lot of jobs over the course of my life, you know, retail stuff, technical stuff, all kinds of things all over the map. But you know, something that's bothered me is how just assholey people can be towards service workers, right? Like you people that work in a gas station or people that work at a fast food restaurant or something, they're just like dicks to them. It's like, man, why you got to be so mean? At least be respectful of people. Like what?
Yeah.
It just, God, it boils my blood when I see people being a dick to somebody. Like, do you really think this like 17-year-old kid has anything to do with the bad day you're having? Has any influence on that whatsoever? Okay, maybe they're, you know, do you think that they intentionally fucked up your order just to make your day worse? Of course not. I mean, logically, of course not. So why take it out on that person? And that's a person too. Like, but people feel like entitled to do that. Like, oh, you know, I'm in a better place or something. And I don't even know what that means, honestly. Like what? So you have more money? That doesn't mean shit.
I remember.
I remember. I just want to like end my tirade with this one thing. I remember the scene in the 50s War of the Worlds where everybody's fucking panicking as the Martian ships are coming in and just blasting the hell out of everything, blowing everything up. And everybody's running and trying to scramble to get onto buses and get out of town and stuff. And there's this guy with a briefcase full of cash. And he's like, I'll give you anything. I'll give you money. And people just trample him and they throw his briefcase full of cash like all over the street. And like that stuck with me, you know, as a little kid. Like, oh, you know, in certain situations, money doesn't mean a damn thing. Okay, so there you go. I'll end that.
Yeah. I had it and I held on to it.
Sorry.
And I lost it.
Oh, dang it. Oh, man. I went on for too long. Man. Well, maybe you'll remember. Let's see. You have any other thoughts before I go on another tangent?
Shit, it was something about perspective and
oh man, I really want to.
I had like a revelation. I want to remember the revelation because it's
what?
like important to my life.
What?
No, I've forgotten.
So where'd you have the revelation? Because sometimes backtracking.
I don't know. I see a crow for some reason.
Huh. That's my spirit guide, by the way.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, your spirit guide wouldn't stop talking.
Sorry. But I had a really relevant point to make there. Oh man.
Oh, I think it was in the realm of like, you know, if people had some point of reference and were able to see how much you get paid, like, no, hold that thought. I just remembered the real one.
Nice. Yes.
I remember when I was a kid and I first learned about something like a cast, you know, like with the E at the end.
Oh yeah.
My heart sank, and I don't know if it ever quite floated back to that level again, just because I was like, we just classify other humans as less than us, like on that simplistic of a level, like
Yeah,
that we can just glance at them and know what caste they're in.
Yeah, whole families and generations even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't know, that bugged me on like a deep metaphysical level, like PTSD style.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are we that shitty? Like,
I know.
what do we possibly gain from making another person feel bad?
Yeah, or categorizing somebody on the basis of their, societal, socioeconomic uh, level, or I mean, there's even the caste system is terrible. Like, and it still exists to this day in some places. That oh, hey, you're just born into this particular layer. And I guess, well, that's all you're ever going to be is, I guess you're going to be one of those shit sweepers for the rest of your life because your family is shit sweepers.
That system is alive and well in the United States. And unfortunately, you just can't see it.
Yeah. It's not quite as prevalent. Now, it isn't something that it's a societal structure. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying about
I mean, it's
people mistreating people because, oh yeah, you're just one of those people that works at McDonald's or something. Like, oh, you're nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
and I feel like ascribing a number to what a person's earning and being able to know that might hopefully positively affect how people are seeing lower class people,
Yeah, I'd like to get away. Like, honestly, I'd prefer a system that doesn't care that much about how much you're making monetarily and more places value on the things that you do. I would.
If the two weren't tied to each other so much, like that would
true. But that's what I'm saying. That's my hope is like society in general should be perceiving things in this way. Think about what you would do, and how much you would pay to not do something. If your sewer pipe was backed up, would you actually crawl into the sewer pipe, crawling through poo? How much would you pay to not do that? Well, that's how much you should pay a person to do that. Like okay, yeah, I know programmers can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Sure, they have like a special skill and there's underwater deep sea welders and like all kinds of people, engineers, architects, and all this stuff, and doctors and surgeons. They do fantastic things. But like the really terrible jobs are the ones that we should be respecting, especially in fact, bringing pay into this. You should be even more respectful of a person who does the most terrible job for the least amount of money. If someone's willing to crawl into a sewer to unplug the big dump you just took for $100, like, oh my God, dude, I salute you. You are a god. Like, that is awesome. Like, that's the thing. Like, it goes beyond pay. I mean, pay is a factor, obviously, because that's kind of, well, whatever coin of the realm we use is what we've got to pay our dues with. So somehow you have to pay those to survive. But yeah, like, it kind of goes back to what you were saying before about like recognition. There are so many people who do things for nothing, no pay whatsoever. They just do things as a volunteer. And there's all these people that are like, oh, these people are heroes and stuff. Well, the guy that crawls down to that sewer pipe and unclogs it, he's a hero to me. Like, because I don't want to go there. And I watched, it made me think like under my house. So my house doesn't have a basement, it has a crawl space. And this crawl space is like this tall. It is super tiny and it's full of dead animals, rodents and spiders, probably more spiders than anything else. I look down there, it is full of spiders. So many freaking spiders. I would not, I barely poke my head down there, let alone crawl in it. And I saw these two guys when the landlord decided he wanted to insulate the house underneath. Finally, like these two guys showed up in this truck and they crawled into that little tiny hole down under the house and crawled around, like pulling the insulation and stapling it and stuff, like down in this tiny space where you could basically, there's barely enough room to lay down in. And they're down there like stapling insulation and probably getting their lungs full of fiberglass and stuff like that. Who knows? And probably full of spiders. Probably more spiders.
I suddenly feel claustrophobic, and I'm not claustrophobic.
Yeah, but it's like, I got mad respect for those people. Like, I don't think they probably didn't get paid that much. It's like they left in a hurry, so I didn't get a chance to shake their hand, but I totally would have. Like, hey, thanks. Like, just give people a thanks. And when there's somebody bringing you food or something, maybe just be slow to react if things aren't quite up to par. And if you don't know why you should be slow to react, go and work in food service for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder, did I already ask this? I wonder if there was a study done where if you had like an employee of the month, let's say, a contest or something where somebody would get, an extra $25 or something and a little paper plaque. I wonder if they show less dissatisfaction with where their wage is at versus a company that doesn't do those sorts of, pat on the back sort of things.
You had mentioned studies, but not that particular one.
Yeah.
No, that's a really, really good idea. Recognition goes a long way, and it's not just recognition from your boss or the CEO of the company or something. Although, if you're, hey, to all those CEOs out there, go down and hang out with the lowest tier people. Go down and see what people do, help them out or something. I don't know. You just have coffee with people. It's a good thing to do. But yeah, like getting that bit of recognition, kind of being in the limelight, center of attention for some extra special thing that you did. Like, it's a huge motivating factor. And the thing is, it doesn't cost much. It's something companies ought to be doing all the time. Even if you give somebody just a gift card to like Walmart or something, at least it's something. Give them $100 gift card, then get something cool, and have a little celebration like, hey, this person did something awesome. That should happen a lot more often. But it gets the recognition of your coworkers too. And it also motivates everybody else to do the same thing. Like, whether it be monetary or just social kind of thing. Like, the money thing, as long as you're able to make ends meet, job satisfaction, I think, comes down to like that whole recognition thing. Like, you're doing something, like people care about what you're doing and you're making a difference. You're doing something significant, whether it be just sitting there typing things into a spreadsheet or climbing up on power lines and stuff off of a helicopter and fixing an insulator. Like, by the way, if you've never seen any of those videos, you should. That is some Oh, that's some next level stuff, man. Whoa. It is. You could not. Actually, that kind of ties in. Like, I've watched those videos. I've watched people climbing radio towers, like 1,500 feet up, on this skinny little thing held up by guy wires, right? Just to change a freaking light bulb. Like, oh no. You could not, your wallet is not big enough to compel me to climb that freaking tower. You know, like, I've watched the videos, the people getting off on they're sitting on a helicopter and they got the hot stick and then like they grab onto the wires and they shimmy down them, you know, like, oh, hell no. No, you give me $100,000, I would not do that, you know, like, so different things work for different people. Some people are willing to do things. Maybe some people enjoy it. There's people that enjoy climbing stuff and being up high and taking risks and stuff. And there's some people that they just want to sit at a desk. And so, yeah, the job, I don't know what point I was going for there, but just that like the pay itself isn't enough. It isn't the sole marker or the yardstick, I guess, upon which you should judge a job. Like, and satisfaction doesn't necessarily come from the paycheck. Like, in fact, it's very few times where I've been like, oh, cool, I got a paycheck. Usually it's like, oh, wow, hey, you know, there's a personal message from the CEO that we did a really cool job doing this thing. Like, oh, wow, that was awesome. You know, or everybody, a whole bunch of people, like where I work, you know, I work in retail IT. So there's a bunch of stores and it's point of sale systems. A whole store could be down and you show up and all of a sudden you're the hero. You're the firefighter for just a minute. You know, the people who everybody's like, oh my God, thank God you're here. You know, and you're like, push one little button and you're like, all right, it's fixed. Like, and they're like, oh, thank God. It's like, it's not to downplay the stuff that firefighters have to go through. Like, you know, but it's kind of akin to that.
It's perspective, and you know, it's a similar phenomenon, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wanted to take some time to talk about businesses being transparent when looking to fill a position, you know, as far as like the range of the salary and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one I feel a little more on the fence about. Like, I can understand why, you know, the business would want to try to keep some mystique to that, but you know, a lot of that is psychological bullshit. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Like, in general, is it a better practice to say, here's what we're willing to pay, or do you think they should keep it tight-lipped? Because I feel like you could be wasting a lot of people's time if you're not aligned on that, and you need X amount to live and you're willing to pay Y amount that's down here. Nobody needs to waste their time on that middle shit. Like,
no, that's a really, really good point. And that actually kind of like, that kind of practice feels a lot like car dealerships, right? You know, oh, the sticker price. And then there's this session where you go and you sit in an office and you haggle with somebody over the price. Like, where else does that happen? Tell me where. Do you go into Safeway and there's like a price range on the apples? Like, it just depends on how charming you are, you know, or something.
You walk in every single day and you like put your elbow up on the edge and you're like, can I jabber at you? Can I tell you how my grandfather pulled all these apples down from it? You know, he never made more than a nickel a year. Like, I ain't gonna pay that much for apples.
Well, and then the price you pay would depend on who's cashiering that day too, if they like you or not, or how good of an argument you make. Well, I get it. For certain positions, experience does matter, right? Like if you're going into an architectural firm and you just now came out of college, you never designed a building in your entire life. Well, you're not worth that much compared to the person that's been doing it for like 50 years, right? And has built like designed all kinds of amazing structures, iconic things, right? Those things are going to be worth more. You could go into sports, right? If you're coming out of college and you're fresh football player or whatever, you're not going to be as valuable as somebody who's proven themselves time and time again and won the Super Bowl or something. So a little bit of a range does make sense, but having gone through that process a few times, it is very obfuscated. It's like you don't really know what you're going to get paid. And it's almost like it's kind of that car dealership thing where you're kind of haggling over the pay and trying to prove yourself and stuff. I don't know. In some industries it makes sense, in others it doesn't. I guess if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's so weird. Like that, the negotiation aspect of like assigning a value to every minute of our lives, or a second, however far down you want to divide it. Like we're like monetizing time.
Oh man, no, wait. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a point about pay. And maybe this should be a minute microscopy, I guess. But as far as what time is worth to you as somebody providing your time for some material goods in exchange, be it dollars or yen or whatever, I don't know, whatever you're getting paid. I think about it this way. People will spend hours and hours just sitting in front of a TV watching stupid shows on Lifetime about relationships and eating ice cream. For hours they'll play video games on their Xbox or something, just burning time. But to figure out what your time is actually worth, consider this. If you knew you were going to die 1 hour from now, what would you pay to buy an extra hour? That's what your time is worth.
I would do whatever didn't take me an hour, because wouldn't I just buy myself?
Oh yeah, that's right. You work for an hour to, to get the money, and you're like, "Here's your money."
How do you keep a sucker stuck in purgatory?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that is a thing that people should be thinking about, their own personal time, even your off time. If you were going to die in a short while, like how much would you pay to stay alive? People pay crazy amounts of money just to live another month or something like that. But yet they'll spend months on end just playing some dumbass Halo game or something like. So I don't know, but
you're no stranger to video games, though.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I've been known to play a bit of Duke Nukem and Doom and stuff like that.
We've heard birds come up playing Medal of Honor. I know.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, recreation is actually very valuable. But it's important from a perspective standpoint. Like, what is your life actually worth? Because in that exchange, the business itself isn't giving up life necessarily. They're giving up their profits to you, and you're giving up your time on this earth to do something in exchange for a share of their profits. And maybe somewhere in the middle things tend to meet, and maybe that's where the negotiation comes in. But I think people undervalue themselves way too much in that process. But yeah, it should be a lot more open. I'd like to see more of a price tag. You go into a grocery store and apples cost what they cost per pound or per unit. It's like you buy a gallon of milk and the price tag is there, and you go and they ring it up and that's the price you pay, right? Like, it should be that simple, that clear and obvious. And I don't know why there are exceptions for car dealerships and jobs. I don't know why those are different.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Huh. It's so interesting. We go from wage transparency into almost like making the space-time fabric itself transparent.
And like, what is the meaning of life too? Man, oh, the show is so freaking good. God, you plant a seed and a whole forest grows.
Well, yeah,
That's
it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Again, please don't form a cult.
No, no cults. Definitely.
This is not a manifesto for, like, I don't know, like a utopia. I mean,
no, ooh, man. Nope. We're no modern day Jesuses. Just two dudes having a conversation over Zoom. That's
but
it.
pick up the phone when you're all alone. Or however Depeche Mode said that.
Oh man. Yeah, God, this
Your own personal pizzas.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking of Little 15. Sorry. Depeche Mode is great.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Yeah.
More than one song about pedophilia, though.
What? I mean, perspective.
That's a little weird. Question of Time. That was.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's true. Well, and I don't know. It's tough because different countries do things different ways.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've done an episode on that to an extent about how the underage overage thing is weird to draw a line in, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the song I was referencing was 15. It wasn't 3.
Right.
So it's like there's a big difference there.
Well, and Question of Time, the lyric was, and now you're only 15 and you look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of amazing that hasn't been canceled now.
Oh, well, now it's gonna be, as soon as our 6 viewers alert the presses.
By the way, we appreciate each and every one of you.
Mm-hmm.
All of you viewers, you matter to us.
We're just doing an experiment against the government to see if we could plan a whole new government and overtake this one. And our metric is that if they're onto us, then they'll just fund us, so we'll just keep doing the same stupid YouTube show. But if not, we're going to rise up and take over the country and build a better world for all.
So it's kind of a win-win sort of thing, right? Like, we win either way.
Yeah.
I like this plan. Oh man. Oh man. Jeez. Yeah, this
Might be enough beer.
Yeah, probably so.
Well, this one's still kind of heavy.
So is this one. I mean, we could probably, we're at like 54 minutes or something like that. So we could probably go for a little bit more. Um, though I think I might be hitting a wall too.
Yeah.
But
Well, did we really talk about like the business's point of view though, as far as being transparent about positions, wages?
I don't think so. Not quite. It's more employee centric.
Yeah. So like what from that perspective, what problems would you see with, saying here's how much, the range that we're gonna haggle in? Like, I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, so are we talking about like, Safeway style things where the price tag is what you pay, or a range?
Well, like when you look at a job offer, sometimes they'll say, like depending on experience, it'll be between this or that.
Yeah.
They basically open it up that much, and anyone, any level of experience, can see about how they value that gap, right?
Yeah.
So I think that transparency is important, even if people aren't like applying for that one because they don't feel, they have enough, experience or whatever. At least they might have a metric to aim for to like get to that point.
Yeah. Well, I could see from an employer's standpoint there being problems in that, if you have too high a pay range, people might feel like they're not worthy, and you might, as an employer, miss out on somebody really good. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to think like you could dissuade somebody by paying them too much, but that is a thing.
Yeah, I'd rather change the philosophy of the person who thinks they're not worth that much.
Well, but it's a societal thing. It's ingrained in our society. Like, if I applied to a job that paid $600,000 a year, I'd be like, man, I better be freaking good.
That's true. Yeah.
But maybe I am good. Maybe I'm the perfect fit for what they need, but I might be dissuaded by a higher pay range, or maybe a lower pay range. Maybe if you post something that's too low, trying to lowball people, right? Then you also lose out on a potential good candidate who's like, yeah, right, I'm not going to work for that salary, But if you sat down and talked with that person, they might actually be willing, like the company might pay you more.
You just described the driving force for why that would help lift the bottom end of wages without having to have the government say so, right? Mm-hmm. Like, create that competition and drive it all down naturally.
Yeah,
that's one thing, like transparency would provide, is that grinding of gears real low down, like,
yeah,
getting all the details out.
I'm completely on board with people sharing information as long as they're willing to. I think this goes deeper than just legislative angles and stuff. Like, this is societal. People are very closed about how much money they make. They're very private, and there's nothing wrong with being private, but
yeah,
there's a certain threshold where you're a little bit.
It can make you a target.
Yeah,
yeah,
and sharing information, I think, is helpful. Employees talking to each other, like, oh, this is how much I make, this is how much you make, that kind of thing. Because here's the thing: if you're oblivious and you're sitting here working for 10 years making like, $3,700 or $37,000 a year doing something, and all your coworkers are making $60,000, if you don't know that,
Well,
well, you're missing out.
here,
Like they're taking advantage of you, and
yeah,
employers and employees will use every advantage they can to get ahead. So I think openness and honesty is the best policy in that regard.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that generating that conversation is a good way to achieve that goal. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like, how do you change? I mean, because you have to change an entire culture. People are resistant to sharing that information. It's funny too, because people will
Oh,
post their deepest, darkest thoughts on Facebook or something, but they won't tell their best friend how much money they make. I don't
okay.
get that.
Here's what I was thinking. For the people on the fence about, like considering that private or whatever, you don't have to be transparent like 100%. You can head it at like 50%. And you can have a conversation in the lunchroom with someone and be like, I want to make sure you're getting paid fairly, but I also don't feel comfortable divulging what I make. You could say something like, how much do you make? Oh, dude, that's not enough. And just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Let him guess, him or her guess, like self-evaluate, like, oh, well, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe here's how I would pay myself on my scale. I'm going to take the median of that and shoot for the median between those two. Like it's going to build introspect, I think,
Yeah.
but it also leaves a little bit of autonomy
Mm-hmm.
to whether or not, because I can get like if you feel personal about it, I've had those feelings, but I feel like I'm trying to detach from those feelings because they're not necessary.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, and that's something that is a big problem in society, and why I think there's so much resistance to divulging
Yeah.
how much money you make, your
Yeah.
salary.
How does how much money someone makes or has have any effect on their character?
Exactly. Like, why is that the thing that we measure each other by? Your income? Really? Seriously? That's something I can never wrap my head around. I, I, I don't care how much people make. Honestly, like if you could do a whole bunch of stuff with nothing, this is why I love what Hollywood, like this place in Uganda, made action films, and their first one, Who Killed Captain Alex, was made on a budget of like $200. Dude sold everything he had to buy a video camera because he wanted to make action movies, and he did it, and he became world fucking famous. Like, you're a baller, dude. Like, I don't care. Like, he doesn't have any money, you know. Well, actually, he probably does now. But at the time, he didn't. And that's the whole thing. Like, people compare each other, like compare themselves to each other. Um, and what metric do we use? Well, I guess income. And so people look at how much money you make as a metric to measure your social status. But I'd argue that's kind of bullshit. Um,
I
it
feel like the Ferengi in Star Trek were a parody on humans.
Mhm. I would agree. Well, it's like all good science fiction. It's introspective, um, kind of a social analysis.
Yeah. Well,
And yeah.
if you think about it in terms of the time, it was kind of parsed out in like racial terms, right? Like there were these core aliens, right? you know,
Mhm.
the Vulcans and the Romulans who are pretty related, and you know, the Klingons, and and you see who's at war with who, and over time as Star Trek progresses, how those alliances shift kind of in correlation to what they're supposed to represent here on Earth. But then the Ferengi, you get to that, and it's like you see that Ferengi greed everywhere on Earth.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like
that's
the
true.
one defining human element is we all give a shit what things are worth. Like,
That's true. And it's good that they made the Ferengi kind of comedic, because humor is the best way to deal with difficult
yeah,
subjects. Um, man, oh, jeez. The important thing to note, for people who are not making as much as they think they're worth, is like you are not your job. You're not your paycheck. There's just a job is a means to an end, and it should be. I don't know if that makes as much sense as I thought it did. Um,
I got the vibe. Like, yeah,
yeah, and I mean, we should be analyzing things in that respect. That
there's a lot of different currencies in value.
Yeah, exactly. And people are inclined to compare each other, on the basis of income or net worth or wealth or something like that. Like, who fucking cares? I don't care how many dollars you have. Like, what is a dollar, honestly? Like, if you look at it, it's vaporware. You could have $1 trillion and it's really not worth anything because it's just some fabricated construct. It doesn't mean anything. What matters is what you do with your life. What matters is what you do with your time. You know, try to accomplish something. Yeah, everybody has to work a job. It's just how it is. Um, whether you have to work for dollars or work for corn, like, we all got to work. It's just a fact. But the things you gain from your work don't define you. We're more than that. I, I guess. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. I have like a really epic point to make, but can't quite conjure it. Hmm.
Aye,
That's
buddy. That's the beer in ya.
that's okay. I'll make it a minute microscopy. Uh, man.
I don't know. I recently kind of fell into this situation where, you know, I was out of work for a long time, you know, my mom getting cancer, and I moved across the country like twice in 4 months and all that shit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm in a bit of a phase of rebuilding, and I get this job, and it was you know, we did the pay negotiation dance, and it maxed out like at less than the minimum I could accept to like have the life I want.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was like, well, like now I have a choice between like not quite enough or nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just you know, that I don't know. It's kind of an interesting perspective.
Well, and that really sucks. It's like,
But it's like I could have saved myself time had I known like earlier on, because this is like a month and a half process. And you know, I chose to go with it, but had I not chosen to go with it, I would have wasted all like 6 weeks of my time. You
gee,
know, like
oh, man. Well, yeah, and I'd like to get into that, um, conversation about like some pay versus no pay kind of thing. But I think that we should probably put that aside.
Oh yeah, that feels like an episode.
Yeah, that would be. That's actually a really good conversation. Like, oh man,
yeah, it is.
And this has actually been really, really good. Holy shit! Wow, I feel like we've secretly solved a bunch of problems.
Yes. We'll know we've struck gold when the government starts sending us paychecks because of what I said earlier.
Make it rain, bitches.
we just like lay all these NSA traps, like step here to get us paid.
Well, you know, black budgets, they do kind of just throw money around willy-nilly. So, you know, if we get in with the right people, and yeah, it could happen. Oh man. Yeah. Oh, I think that's more than enough beer for
More beer.
Mighty fine beer. Yeah.
We totally, when we have our own brewery and restaurant, we got to have one called Mighty Fine Beer.
Yes.
It's got to be a lager.
A lager. Oh,
it will be a lager.
Oh yeah. We completely structure everything around our inside jokes.
I'm sure that's what like 95% of craft beer places do.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm sure if we have enough fans, I know you're out there, we'll be able to convince them to play along, and we'll create a whole new generation of sorry. Go ahead. Oh man.
Well, that's probably about all the deep sink diving we can do into transparent wages
and the meaning of life and everything else in between.
And how all the little electrons disagree with each other.
Polarity is a thing. So, oh man, as usual, this has been a pretty good conversation.
What is polarity, man?
Oh man,
what if the simulation is inside the people that are imagining the polarity that's creating the construct that we exist in, or so we think, man.
Pwah, pwah. Mind blown. Oh man, we have to do a simulation theory episode. That would be good, because I actually have a lot of thoughts on that one.
That would be a fun like mind bender.
Mm-hmm.
We should like try to do it on like ayahuasca or
yeah. I was gonna say there should probably be some drugs involved in that one. Like, yeah. I mean, prior to it, we should probably be high. But oh man, that would be a really good one. This is a really good conversation too, though.
Yeah.
Oh man.
As I knew it would be, as
Yeah.
it was foretold. Again, please no cults.
Yeah. KSM chapter 4 verses 9 to 28.
Are there any other KSM priests.
Oh man.
Was it the red sink or the blue sink?
Oh shit.
Okay, that's obscure. So
Very. And that's probably a pretty good point to end on, I think.
Someday somebody's going to do a podcast about the guys that like built entire Red Dwarf episodes out of their like, Red Dwarf mentions. Like,
yeah.
Like somebody goes back and decodes it, and there's like a hidden message built out of all of the Red Dwarf shit that we dropped. And a conspiracy theory forms that we're on like the Grant Naylor paycheck.
And somehow we're secretly on the bill to jumpstart the second Big Bang.
That's a piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
Oh, I love Red Dwarf. It's the best show ever. Mm-hmm. Right up there with Star Trek. Yeah, okay. We are not nerds. Okay, we're nerds.
If you haven't watched Red Dwarf, what the smeg is wrong with you? But go find it. You can find it. It's the internet age. It's the information superhighway.
Ooh, internet. Hello, computer.
I love how a mouse was once the mascot for the computer.
That shows how far things have come. Well, and actually, just briefly talking about icons, the telephone icon, the floppy disk icon for saving and stuff, like nobody knows what that shit means.
Oh yeah,
most of this stuff, it's like totally arcane. And,
like most of the people I work with were born like the year I graduated, and they're like, I once had in my house a computer with a floppy drive. I was like, do you remember when floppies were actually floppy? And they're like, what? Excuse me? I'm like, okay, so I'm that old.
Yes, old man, you are. Yeah, it's interesting how iconography like persists. We still have all of these symbols that today don't have any meaning, like the telephone thing. Like, who has a freaking landline these days? Except like you probably got to be like 90 plus years old to have a landline. And you're probably still using your rotary phone, with a converter box so that you can connect with the, DTMF only system. I actually remember dialing my friends on a rotary phone. It's gonna date me. Yeah.
What's DDMF?
DTMF? That's the phone system, like the tone generation when you push the buttons on a non-rotary phone. When you have the one with the buttons, generates these tones that are like two frequencies that combine to form a code, essentially.
Okay, I was gonna say it was downtown, motherfucker. That's probably the same thing.
Surprise, motherfucker. Oh man, I love how these episodes end.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, with us like drunk as shit. Like,
we should just end every episode with a bunch of like Sam Jackson level motherfuckers.
Oh man,
thanks for deep sea diving with us, motherfuckers.
Oh man, we gotta hire that dude. Oh man. Well, if you happen to have stuck it out this long, thanks for that. Because we've barely stuck it out this long.
You really love us.
Yeah, we do appreciate that, though, for people who actually stick it out and watch the whole entire episode and listen to our completely ridiculous conversations. Not that everything's ridiculous.
We can make it seem that way, though.
It's true. Like, creative editing. Yeah. You could turn Plato into Robin Williams if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Actually, no, that was a bad example, because Robin Williams was genius.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that guy. Oh. Well, anyway, to everybody who's still around, thanks for deep sink diving with us into wage transparency, the meaning of life, motherfucker, and everything in between. And yeah, keep the conversation going down there in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell wherever the bell is. Somewhere, maybe it's over there. I think it's somewhere down in this vicinity. So hit that subscribe thing, hit that bell over there, and yeah.
At least for this version of Firefox or Java or whatever.
Yeah, well, until Google changes their mind and decides that like all the stuff needs to be over on that side. Like, well, and then all this stuff that we've spent all kinds of time doing is meaningless.
Dude, we're breaking the fifth wall.
The fifth wall. Wait, the white hole.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
She rides. Oh man. Best if you only watch one episode of Red Dwarf, watch White Hole. That's my advice.
Yeah.
That is so good. Huh. I might have to watch that when we conclude this episode, actually. I love that.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Haven't had a Red Dwarf fix in a little while.
Actually, we should do like an MST3K Red Dwarf watch video.
Why not?
Where it's like our ugly heads as silhouettes, like down below, and we're watching a video and commenting on it.
Is there a copyright on that? Like a silhouette doing a review?
There might be, but if we frame it as a parody, we could probably get away with it.
A parody of parody?
Yeah. Ooh, Inception. Cue Inception sound. Man, I think the viewers probably have had enough. I definitely have had enough to drink.
Yep, me too.
I still have an unopened beer, though, but I won't open it. Because at
least not without taking a proper piss first.
Well, like I said, keep the conversation going down below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for deep sink diving with us. And yeah, everybody, have a good night.